Hello, everybody. Joe Ringen here. I am an author. I wrote a fantasy book called The Ballad of Ages. You can find it on Amazon. As a hobby, I work a 9 to 5 job in insurance. And I also, as a hobby, like to read a lot. And one of my projects, I guess, of life right now is to put all of my thoughts and reviews of books that I read online for people that have nothing better to do than listen to me talk about books. I also have a blog where I write my reviews, so a lot of my video comes right from there. So today I'll jump right into a book I read just recently, a couple weeks ago, while on vacation. Stone of Tears, Book 2 of the Sword of Truth series by Terry Goodkind. So you're probably thinking, wait a minute, Joe, why are you starting out with Book 2? And I'll answer that by saying I read the first book in the series, which is called Wizard's First Rule. I read that book a long time ago when I was in high school. I really liked that book, and I would do a review of it, but man, that book is huge. All of the books in this series are huge. We're talking 900 plus pages, and I liked that book, but not enough to reread it. So I don't have a review of it. I probably won't because there's a lot of other books I would rather read that I haven't read than spend all that time reading the first book again. So why did I start reading Stone of Tears? On vacation, right before vacation, I was trying to find a book to read, but I didn't want to bring, when I travel, we go on a plane and then a cruise ship and stuff, and I don't like lugging around big books, physical books, when I travel, especially on the plane. I don't like being that guy that's got the light on when everyone's trying to sleep. It just, I don't know. So I travel with my Kindle, and sometimes at home I'll read on my Kindle too. But I finally just decided I'm gonna try this Kindle Unlimited subscription out. It's $11 a month, and so far it is totally worth it. There's a ton of great books on Kindle Unlimited, and so anyway, long story short, I got Kindle Unlimited. Went to the fantasy section to just find a book to read, and the Stone and Tears came up. I think like the first 5 or 7 books in the Sword of Truth are on Kindle Unlimited, which is really cool. And so I'm like, I have a lot of time we'll be sitting on planes and shuttle buses and stuff. So I could read a very large book, and that's exactly what I did. So that's how I started reading Stone of Tears. I'm glad I did. I'm going to get back into this series mostly because it's on Kindle Unlimited, and it's really, I think it's enjoyable, and I'll tell you some reasons why if you keep watching the video. To start, this book starts right where Wizard's First Rule, the first book, leaves off. And that's a kind of a cool thing, in my opinion. A lot of times in these large fantasy series, there's some gaps in time between books, and I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. It doesn't bother me. But I think it's pretty cool that this starts like seconds after the ending of Wizard's First Rule. And maybe that would have been a cooler effect had I read this directly after reading Wizard's First Rule. Either way, I think it's a pretty unique and cool concept. So anyway, I'm gonna try my best not to spoil things. There's a lot of events that happen in this book and characters. So I apologize if I spoil things, but I'm going to consciously try not to. So the end of Wizard's First Rule, the first book, the good guys who are Richard, Zed, the wizard, Colin. I think it's pronounced Colin. I pronounce it Colin. Her name Colin. It's spelled Kahlan. I don't know, might be Kalen, might be Kalan, might be Callan. I don't know. In my mind, it's Colin, so I'm going with that. So anyway, so the end of the book, the good guys, they defeat the evil guy. Big, yeah, whoop whoop, right? That's what happens. It was actually a really cool scene. But what happens in the second book, they find out that what they did to defeat Dark and Rawl, who's the bad guy, what they had to do to defeat Dark and Rawl, actually ended up causing more hurt and more issues, more bad things to happen in the world. So that's a really clever foreshadowing of what ends up being the wizard's second rule. I'm not going to tell you what that is. Read it for yourself. It's a very clever way of doing that. It seems like my guess is every book is going to have a different wizard's rule, some sort of like maxim or philosophy that is a concept of the book. I think every book's probably going to have that, and that's a smart thing. That's kind of cool about the series. But so they unleash this bad thing. Basically, the underworld, the veil between the underworld and the real world is rent, and monsters are coming through, and they're coming to cause pain and suffering, which is not a good thing. The ultimate bad guy, called the Keeper, who's like, my guess, kind of like Satan figure, he's not able to get through the veil into the real world yet. There's more things that have to happen, but his minions can get through and cause all sorts of havoc. So that's kind of the plot of this book, is the good guys are figuring out how to repair the veil, keep the Keeper in the underworld, and save the land. So there's 980 pages of this book, so obviously a lot of things happen, a lot of little side quests, side stories, and to be honest, I was impressed. This was not a boring book by any. A lot of times you get those huge, thick books, and 980 pages, and it's like, holy cow! Half of this book is just them walking through trees and discussing the different colors of the leaves and stuff. That did not happen much. I'll say it didn't happen much. There was a section of this book that I was like, okay, could have cut that out. But like, well done, Mr. Goodkind. I think most of this book was entertaining. So that's cool. So I'll talk a little bit about what was a little boring. Maybe it's not boring to everyone, but basically they go back to the Mud People, which is kind of like, a really nice village of sort of like natives that help them and stuff and teach them how to fight and shoot bows and arrows. And I mean, the people are cool. The village is cool, but like right after, kind of towards the beginning, right, when they start on their quest to save the world, they go back to the village, and like you got so much momentum going with the story, and then all of a sudden they're back, and they just kind of sit there for a while and talk about hurt feelings. How Richard, who's the main character, hurt, like, I don't know, they don't quite trust him or something, and it's stupid. So they just kind of sit around and talk for a while. And then what makes it even worse is this, and this is the biggest gripe of this book and probably the series going forward, is the cheesy romance stuff between Colin and Richard. Like, what in the world? It's like Terry Goodkind is great at writing fantasy and even philosophy, and I'll even say he's really good at writing characters. He develops characters. They have motivations, and it's good. But romance is not his forte, and that's fine. I just wish he would understand that and not keep trying to make it his forte. It's like, you can just say like they love each other and we as the readers will understand that. Like you don't have to like go for 20 pages about just like like I kid you not, like Colin will sit there and just talk to Richard, telling her how much she just wants to cuddle with him. Like it's what? Like what in the world? It totally takes you out of the book. It's such a cool like gritty fantasy story, and then like okay, like Full House all of a sudden, like that like TV show thing. It's like what the heck, dude? So that's the weird thing about the book. It's not not enough to make me say don't read the book, but just like be aware. It takes you, especially since Colin as a character is so cool and like BA and like really powerful and has kicks people's butts all the time. She doesn't, she just goes around busting skulls and stuff, and like a really strong female character. And then that just doesn't make sense. Like all of a sudden she's just, oh man, like I just want to like rub your arm. Like what the heck? It's weird. So yeah, I wish that part didn't exist in the book. It kind of comes up throughout the story. And the romance between Colin and Richard is central to the story. So like that is great. And it's cool that they love each other again. I like those kind of old school values where love exists and it's a thing worth fighting for. And these two characters have that, and that's great. I love that. Just don't talk about rubbing each other's faces. Like what the heck? No, I don't like I don't know much about women. I get a lot of things wrong about women. Just ask my wife. But like they don't talk like that. Anyway. So that's for a 900-page book. That being the only gripe is pretty good. Much better than the first book. I'm not going to go into. If you've read the first book, you know what I'm talking about. There is a part in that book that is insane. Like no human being should have to read that. That stuff is way more tamed down in the second book, and I hope it keeps being tamed down going forward. There was still some like adult themed scenes, and that's whatever. That's par for the course for these 90s fantasy series for some reason, like Game of Thrones, and I don't know. That was just what people were all about back then. So it is what it is. But it's much improved than the first book, in my opinion. So that's the bad, but the good far outweighs the bad in this book. There are so many great scenes of like fighting, philosophy, just all the things that people who enjoy fantasy stories want and crave. Things like dragons, magic, deep prophecies. Like there's cool prophecies where they tell of Richard and what's going to happen at the end of this book, but there's different interpretations that could cause the story to go totally different directions. So it's a very like intellectual fantasy book, which is fun because not every book is like that, and it's done well. So that's impressive in my opinion, and it keeps the pages turning. Again, it's hard to put down because you want to know what happens next. And I'm that kind of person where it's very hard to put that down when there's a little cliffhanger, and Terry Goodkind's good at writing that way and ending chapters and places where you want to keep reading. So the world is huge, and there's obviously a lot of history and lore just to get lost in and learn about. The author Terry Goodkind does a really good job of just sort of whetting the appetite of, he'll just kind of these throwaway lines of, oh, this war of the wizards that happened so long ago, and you're kind of like, hold up, back up the train. What is this War of Wizards? I need to know what this is, what happens, who are the people, and it like if you're old like me and you remember watching Star Wars episodes 4, 5, and 6 before the prequels came out, and then Obi-Wan talked about the Clone Wars, but no one really knew what that was. That's what this felt like. It got the wheels turning, and I'm thinking, what is all the cool things that could have happened, those sort of things happen a lot throughout the story, and maybe those little throwaway lines will get expounded upon later on in different books, and I think they probably do because there's like at least 10 books in this series. It might even be more, and they're not small books. So I think there's got to be some exploration of those things. So that in of itself makes me want to keep reading this series, and I'm sure I will because I really loved it for the most part, like 95% of it. The ending was kind of rushed, but that's okay because the ending didn't have. So here's another weird thing. And it's not spoiling it, but for some reason, like this book is called Stone of Tears, and it makes sense for what it is, and you'll find that out when you read it. But the Stone of Tears plays a very small part in this book. It doesn't show up very often. So that's all I'll say about that. But that's why the ending is kind of like it was fast and it happened, but fine. That didn't ruin it for me because all the stuff that happened in the middle was so good. Brief synopsis of this, because again, it's hard to not spoil it by going in depth. So Richard finds out he has all this magic in the first book, right? So in this book, he figures out how to control his magic at the beginning of this book, and so he can still love Colin. What happens though is magic keeps getting more powerful, and so he starts to get these headaches, and they are debilitating. And if he doesn't learn how to control the magic, these headaches and the magic itself will kill him. Nobody wants that to happen except for the bad guys. So again, without going into too much detail, there are once his headaches get so bad, these 3 sorceresses from the old world, which is a really cool thing, based on prophecy that they read, 20 years ago, show up at this place and time to take Richard and back to the old world, to their Palace of Prophecy, I believe it's called, and teach him how to become a wizard and then control his magic so as to control the negative effects of it that will kill him. So that's a big part of what happens. He does it, he goes, and that's where Colin and Richard's stories split. And the part about Richard going to the Palace of Prophets to learn from these sorceresses or sisters, is what they end up being referring to as. I was so worried when that started because one of the tropes that I don't hate but I get bored of is the magician going to wizard school, learning how to use his power. Like Harry Potter did that so good. That's all I ever need of that arc, of that trope. I don't need it in any other books. And it happens a lot in books. It's just a lot of pages where they meet their friends in school, their professors hate them, they're smarter than everyone else in the class, but they still failed, whatever. We've read it all before. That doesn't happen in this. So it's a totally different experience. And there's no classroom scenes. There's a lot of cool people that he meets at the Palace of Prophets. And also there's this sort of subplot. Well, maybe it's actually the main plot. I don't know. Where there's the secret Dark Sisters, and they're secret, working with the Keeper. So Richard kind of uncovers that plot. So that's part of what happens there too. This book, Man, it's dark though. Like probably the whole series is too. Just be ready. There's some. It's adult, man. It's not like kids. It's not for kids. So there's a lot of violence, a lot of just grimy stuff like that happens, and it's kind of it works though because you got to have that. It builds a better understanding or appreciation for the good that usually ends up happening and defeating the bad. So just be aware of that. As a pro tip, most fantasy books in the 90s are that way. At least the ones I've read, like the thick ones, is what it is. But yeah, so it's a very good book. Zed, who's the wizard from the first book, who's kind of the mentor of Richard, and more than that, you'll find out in the book. Maybe related. Anyway, all I'll say on that. So Zed has a small part in this book, which is kind of a bummer. So he does a little side quest to find Addie, who's like a witch doctor lady, but he needs the secret or the magical bone thing. I don't remember exactly what happens because it was kind of boring, but he's a great character, and it was kind of a bummer he wasn't featured much. I'm sure he'll come back, so I'm not too. Oops, sorry. So I'm not too hung up on that. Colin, though, so her story was, I think that was better than Richard's. Colin's a really cool character who has a lot of who's has deep emotions and motivations, and she's written well, other than the her her weird outlook on her love of Richard is a little over the top. But so her story though, she goes back to her home because she's the mother confessor, who's like the most powerful woman in the whole world. That happens in the first book. So she goes back to Aidendrill, which is the kingdom with the queen of the world, and she goes to, I guess I don't remember exactly what she got. Probably to get their help, to fix the torn veil of the underworld. But when she gets there, everyone is like the kingdom is just pillaged. And Goodkind, he does not hold back in descriptions. It's brutal. Like women, children, just all throughout, killed, buildings burned, and things a lot more worse than that I just don't even want to say out loud. So she goes, and then that, because that's her people, so she's just obliterated, like just depressed. And then so she leaves, and she goes and runs into a troop of like teenage boys, but they're like a band of soldiers, kind of like, they were like the boys, not the Boy Scouts. That's all that comes to mind, but kind of like that. They're like soldiers in training sort of thing, but they're young. But they weren't there. They're on a hike or something when all this happened, so they didn't get included in the carnage. But they found out too. So then they are going on a revenge tour. They are so motivated to avenge their people, and who could blame them? But so the neighboring kingdom, I forget the name of the kingdom, are the ones that did this to Colin's kingdom. So this group of soldiers, teenage boys, are going on this mission to. Oh, my dog is barking. Oh, if you can hear that. They're going on this mission to seek revenge on that neighboring kingdom. And Colin runs into him, and she's kind of like, "Oh, you guys aren't going to be able to do anything." But lo and behold, she finds they're actually really good soldiers, trained very well, and they go on kind of a guerrilla warfare and take out a lot of these evil soldiers from the other kingdom. That was a really cool part of the book. And then Colin leaves them and goes back to her kingdom to summon the council of all the land. So then they can fight this evil kingdom. So But what happens is she learns all these other kingdoms are in league with something called the Imperial Order, I believe it's called, which is going to be the next enemy in the series, I'm sure, that they'll be fighting for a while. But so Colin gets thrown in prison, kind of humiliated. Her hair gets cut, like shaved, kind of like Cersei Lannister. But she didn't do anything wrong. But they're blaming everything on her because she didn't protect them well enough, and she's evil because she has magic. It's written much better than I just explained it, so don't be put off by that. Anyway, so she comes back. She discovers that she has more power than her magic is more powerful than their ability to keep her in prison. So she comes out and just wreaks havoc, and just it's so cool how she gets revenge on these people. And just anyway, that was probably my favorite part of the book, that scene. And while this is happening, Richard is saving the world. He escapes, or he doesn't escape, but he leaves the Palace of Prophets, goes and seals the veil, and the two meet up happily ever after. Oh, wait, there's more, of course, because the Dark Sisters, who are working in league secretly with the Keeper at the Palace of Prophecy, they escape when from Richard, and then, well, he kills most of the bad ones. They escape and go on a ship and sail away. And so I'm thinking they're going to come back at some point, and him and Colin will have to face them as well as the Imperial Order. That's my guess. One last thing is a really cool scene was this. So in order for Richard to get from the world to the old world, which is where the sisters live who teach him, he has to... Oh, what's going on? I might have clicked something, and now it looks weird. That's all right. We'll roll with it. So he has to cross this magical wasteland. It's like a desert, but it's been decimated from the War of the Wizards, which is brought up. And it's the way it's described is super cool. And he has to get through it. There's the Towers of Perdition, which are infused with magic from those wizards that he has to overcome. Read it. It's so cool. And the way it's described in the book is anyone that likes fantasy is going to just gush over this scene. It's so cool. Stone of Tears, Terry Goodkind. It was great. I actually really did enjoy it more than I thought. I was a little worried because of some of the things I didn't like about the first book. And you can read about that. You can find it all over the internet. It's man. Their first book has one of the most atrocious parts. Like I don't know. Again, that's gotten much better. Still a little weird at some point. It points the adult themes that Goodkind writes about, but for the most part, it's a very, very good book. I'm going to continue the series mostly just because I want to learn more about this world and this lore, this history, because it's very well done. And I do appreciate, as much as a lot of reviewers kind of make fun of Terry Goodkind for, he is an intellectual writer. It's not just popcorn fantasy here. There's philosophy infused, and you learn things, and you do have to think about some of the concepts he presents. So I gave this book an 8 out of 10. It's very, very well paced, except for the little boring part. Great characters, great history and lore. Still, the reason it's not higher than an 8 is there's the cheesy romance just took me right out of it. I was laughing at how cringy it is, like at parts. Mostly though, it was a very good read. So go out and read it. I'm going to continue putting out reviews. Some of these I'm catching up from years past. I'm just rereading some reviews I've written years ago on books. So that's why there's more frequency to these videos getting uploaded. I'm not super fast at reading, faster than I used to be, I guess. But a lot of these reviews are from books I've read a while ago that I've already written a review for. So I'm just refreshing my memory on those. All right, that's all for now. You guys take care and stay tuned for the next video.